Good evening to everyone joining us today. I hope you're all safe and well amidst everything that is happening. My name is Valerie Tan from Chinoy TV, 我是陈玉莹, and welcome to Taipan Exclusive, Reimagine Generational Wealth and Family Businesses. This is presented by FWD Insurance in partnership with Chinoy TV and co-organized by Batch 97 of the Alumni Association of Xavier School. We would also like to acknowledge the AAXS President, Mr. Toti Sanchez, AAXS Vice President and Batch 97 President, Mr. Dan Balanzat, and XS97 Homecoming Chairman 2022, Mr. Joseph Ngo. Thank you all so much for being with us today. Now, I know you're all very excited to hear from our panelists today. So let's get started. For our discussion this evening, our panelists will talk about family businesses and how it can transcend generations through investing and succession planning. They will share their personal experiences and real-life success stories of recreating the concept of generational wealth, as well as discuss the best practices in family businesses. So let's get to it. It is my honor to introduce to you our first speaker, the President of Federation of Filipino-Chinese Chamber of Commerce and Industry Incorporated. He is the man behind the multi-awarded Sterling Paper brand, as well as the Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of SL Agritech Corporation, the company who created the first Philippine tropical hybrid rice variety. Let's all welcome Dr. Henry Lim Bon Leong. Good evening, sir. Hoam.
Hoam, Valerie.
Also joining us today is the Senior Vice President of SL Agritech Corporation, the makers of Doña Maria Premium Rice. She's also in charge of the product development and marketing, and now the Executive Vice President of Sterling Group of Companies. The daughter of Dr. Lim Bon Leong, let's all give a warm virtual welcome to Miss Michelle Lim Ganki. Hi, Michelle. Thank you for joining us today.
Hello everyone.
Next, we have a renowned psychologist. She's also a board member, speaker, and consultant for schools, government, and family businesses. She also writes the All in the Family column for the Philippine Daily Inquirer. Let's all welcome Dr. Aquina Lee Chua. Thank you very much, Dr. Aquina, for joining us today.
It's my pleasure, Valerie. Good afternoon, everyone.
Our next speaker is an actuary by profession with a passion for leading teams of talented individuals. He has more than 20 years of experience in the industry, both locally and regionally. A BS Math graduate of DLSU, he also holds an MBA and an MS Finance degree from the same university. He's a fellow of both the US and Philippine Actuarial Societies. He's also a CFA charter holder. The CFO of FWD Life Philippines, let's welcome Jasper Hendrik Cheng. Hi, Sir Jasper.
So thank you, Valerie. Good evening, everyone. And thank you very much. We appreciate you joining us this evening here.
Okay, now let's get started. Our first topic, family business succession, its importance and key factors. Just a reminder to all our participants watching, don't forget to take down notes and your questions. Our speakers will answer them right away after the panel discussion. More so, after the event, you'll be given the chance to stay, socialize, and chat with one another. All right, of course, let's start with Sir Henry. So Sir Henry, your situation is quite unique. You are second generation for Sterling, first generation for SL Agritech. So how did you start to plan to pass on the family business to your children?
Valerie, yes, we are the second generation for Sterling Paper. When I assumed the presidency of Sterling Paper, it was so sudden during that time. My father passed away on a business trip to Hong Kong, and he died suddenly at the age of 49 years old. I was only 24 at that time. So there was really no passing of the baton to me. I had to drop and try to learn everything. But then it's good that during the previous time, my father used to also teach me, when we travel abroad together, how to negotiate, what is the value of business. And I think one thing I really learned from my father is that, it's different. A lot of businessmen say that we have to sell cheap now, but we can sell more, And if we sell more, that's how we make money. But my father has a different thinking. He said, if you want to sell something, sell as high as possible, but yet sell more. So how can you sell something at a very high price and sell more? And that was a challenge to me. And this is what we are going to also pass on to the next generation. Remember when we came out, the first sterling notebook in the 70s now. My father passed away in 1976. And at that time, we came up with our first sterling notebooks. At that time, I put the notebook in front of me and I meditate practically on the notebook. How can I sell high and sell more? Well, if I can make notebooks, so there are other 10 different companies can also produce the notebooks. So the first thing that struck me during that time was the cover of the notebook. I said that I wanted the best cover notebooks in the entire Philippines. So immediately I hired around almost 20 of the designers now from USD, from UP. And then even at that time, we are using computers. Well, not all the banks are using computer already, We use a computer graphics and everything. And we have also a focus group now. So we want to come up with the best notebook cover as much as possible. Now, after you have the notebook cover that you came out already, then people are practically pick up your notebook. But when they open the notebooks, nakita nila yung papel natin, medyo magaspang, medyo hindi, pantay ang mga linya, whatever, crooked lines and all this. So I make to myself, of course, if you have the best design, the second is really quality. So we want to make sure that we have the best quality notebooks. We have a benchmark, even on the caliper of the paper, the opacity, the smoothness, the whiteness, and no broken lines. So we really make sure, even the caliper of our covers, the laminations are really benchmarked. So if you have a good design and then you have a good quality, the third is really the price. So ano bang presyo lalagay ko dito? So I go out to the market and I look at all the notebooks prices. At that time, my idol was really Corona. Medyo mataas ang presyo ng Corona. So I want to place myself even a little bit higher than Corona. So I price it higher. Now, if you have a good design, good quality notebooks, and then if price is high, so what else can you do? You should really promote it. So you really have to do advertising and promotion. I still remember during that time, my father passed away. With 2 million pesos at that time, I went to J. Walter Thompson. I talked to J.J. Calero. J.J. Calero was the president and CEO of J. Walter Thompson during that time. And I said, Mr. Calero, can you accept our business that we want? I want to try media advertising. Not only for notebooks, but also for photo albums. By the way, we are the first pioneer also in photo albums and also the later sets now. At that time, there are no cell phones or whatever. So everybody has to write later sets and the perfume designs, perfume scented and very beautiful designs later sets. So I said, I want to try media on 3 items. I want TV, I want print arts, I want radio, and even I want cinema. So he laughed at me. He said, other companies are spending tens and hundreds of millions, and then you have only 2 million. But, J.J. Calero accepted my proposal. So somehow we were able to do advertising on 3 categories and also the 3 media. And I think 3 years ago, 4 years ago, he wrote a column and he said, he did not regret accepting my proposal. Because what's good for us at that time, because for notebooks, nobody is advertising. If everybody's advertising already, you'll be drowned out now. Just like my good friend, Cecilia Pedro, with the Happy Toothpaste. Best. You are practically competing advertising with close-ups and and even called it. No? So you really have to spend a very big advertising budget. But for us, we do not need really that kind of advertising budget. But so for after a number of years, certain notebooks became very popular. And of course, if you get the highest notebook, and then I came out also with a second line for Avanti, and then a third line called Ohio. Even our third line is even more expensive than the ordinary notebooks in the market. But if you add all of them together, now we sell the most number of notebooks now. If you use SM and National Books as a barometer, we sell the most number of notebooks in this. So this is what my father taught me, and I've been doing this almost even on industrial subdivisions. You're the highest price industrial subdivision, but yet when we offer to sell, it was sold out in less than 30 days now. So these are the things. We make sure we have the best security, the best road network, and all of these things, and even our Doña Maria rice. I do not know anybody of here is eating Doña Maria rice. Doña Maria rice is the highest priced rice in the Philippines. A kilo of Doña Maria rice will cost you more than 100 pesos. Now who's going to spend 100 pesos to eat rice? But we are able to do it now. So these are the things that I want to inculcate this one, of course, to the next generation. And I'm glad now, of course, Michelle is my eldest, or happened to be my eldest, and I'm training her now, but I like her guts now, because you really have to have guts. And as I said, now, one of the biggest risks of entrepreneur is not to take any risk at all. I will not tell you that I'm going to give a turnover the company that's already very well managed, well funded, and all of these things. It will be turned over to her at whatever present things that we have, but she has to improve on herself. I cannot really, guarantee that. But especially this pandemic time, there are a lot of other, things that we really have to consider. And,
yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting, Doc Henry, because people would think that you will pass on your business when it's already well managed, but to you, you will pass it on at whatever state it is, as you mentioned a while ago. Is that correct?
Yes.
So Michelle, the pressure is high. You are the eldest, and of course, this is a big business. But when did you start to get involved with your family business? Was it an unexpected move?
After my graduation, I actually applied to other companies. I told my dad about that. But while I was applying to different companies, my dad always has a complaint or hesitation on the companies that I applied to. So one day my uncle proposed to me that while looking for a job, why don't I temporarily work in our business? So I said, okay, temporary, at least I get to earn something while looking for a more permanent job. So that's where it started. When I actually took the test, I applied, HR interviewed me, the supervisor and the manager interviewed me. I started from the bottom, and I started actually in planning and control in SAP. So I was trained to be to use SAP. I'm a SAP certified consultant, and I enjoyed my job, so I didn't leave anymore. And what's good is that I have no special treatment. I really started from the bottom, so I get to learn everything in detail, and I get to interact with the employee. So that's where I started to be exposed. And on top of that, my dad and my uncle, they are mentoring me. They're telling me what to do in the family business, and even until dinner time, it's not just dinner, it's like business dinner, business meeting dinner. All the stories from how we started, and also the vision for the future. So I'm exposed really early. The office is my playground. Our plant is my playground. I still remember I'm 4 years old and I'm playing with the employees. I'm watching the artists do our notebook designs, our greeting card designs. Until now, they're still there. employees are still there, and it feels like a family. Partly it's a challenge because they know me since I was in nursery, but because I started from the bottom and I'm exposed early, so um, partly I got to prove myself to them and to earn their respect also.
Michelle, do you appreciate starting from the bottom? Because some people, second generation, they start being, for example, like a marketing manager already, or like a management trainee. But for you, you said you started at the bottom. Was it something that you appreciate now?
That is the key experience that I have with me now. I'm glad that I started from the bottom. When I go to our expression store, if I see a little dirt, I'm the one who gets the broom and the rag. But for me, it's not because I want to show the employees that the owner is cleaning. No, it's for me, I'm an employee, so I should be also cleaning. During peak season, I'm a bagger. I'm a sales clerk, which I also enjoy, and it's part of the experience. And uh, I also recommend this to other uh, next generation members to really start from the bottom, because you will know the problems from the bottom up. Not only the problems, I mean how the business runs from the bottom up. And it's going to be easier for you to make decisions later.
All right, that's very insightful. Dr. Quina, family businesses are so common in the Filipino Chinese community. It's like a given already, but sometimes we have to take a step back. What are the factors to consider when bringing your family members to your business?
Family businesses are common not just in the Filipino Chinese community, but actually worldwide, even in the US, etc. 80% up to maybe 95% of enterprises around the world are actually family businesses. And many of the biggest enterprises now started as family businesses. Even Procter and Gamble is Mr. Procter, Mr. Gamble, ganyan. Okay, what are the factors? There are 4 factors that I can think about. So how do you bring in the younger family members to the business? The first one, very obviously, would be capability. Okay? If they're not capable, kung pwede, wag na muna. Let us not talk anymore about seniority or gender. We're already in the 21st century, so capability is more important than that. I'm actually very happy to see that Michelle is the one leading Sterling also. Not really because she's just the eldest, but I think at this point, she has proven her capability. Second one would be motivation. So is the child eager? Sinabi nga ni Michelle, diba? She grew up literally in the paper compound. Most of the, not just Taipans, yes, but also many of the smaller and medium-sized family businesses, the ones that are successful, their kids actually grew up with the business. Okay, so that's one big factor that we have to consider. And they are highly motivated to work not just for the family, they also now grow to see that their enterprise is also a social responsibility, also for the country. Third one would be, and this one I just have to do this because I don't really hear it being said even when I attend international family business seminars. Locally, I think it is important before another family member comes in to see if there is a fit with the business. So I've been sometimes asked to consult on family business wherein nag-aaway na yung mga siblings. So kahit na lahat ng tao capable, if they cannot get along well together, that it could actually be detrimental to the family. So I would actually tell them, somebody na lang should be the chair, maybe as ownership, and then separated with operations, CEO, etc. So that one. In fact, I had a very nice conversation with Ricardo Po, the late Ricardo Po of Century Pacific. I was telling him, your sons are also good. All of them are summa and magna cum laude in the best, in the Ivy League. So I said, paano yan? Lahat sila magagaling. Lahat sila. He also told me, they're also very opinionated. I said, so how can you have 4 heads? They're all capable. And he told me this, and I really wanted to show it to you on a slide, but he wrote it to me. I was very touched by it. It's a Chinese saying, so I'll say it in Mandarin. You know, 退一步. So, you know, when we take a step back, 海阔天空, so the sea and the sky actually expand. And 让一步, so 让, you know, when you give way a step, 风平浪静. So the winds and the waves become very calm. So he quoted that to me and he said that's how they live by. So he says basically when the kids entered, even if they're all extremely smart, academically at the top of their game, all of them very capable, they actually live by that motto. And the last factor possibly will be, well, for today's kids, it has to be interest. Iba na rin yung mga minsan yung mga bata ngayon. Gone are the days wherein the patriarch or the matriarch will say, you know, this is the family business that put food on the table, so you have to join us. Ngayon, iba na. Many of the Filipino Chinese many of my students actually in Ateneo would tell me they have no interest in going into the family business. Nasasayangan ako, to be honest. But I think it is something that the older generation needs to realize. It's very, very difficult to force the younger generation to enter the family, and guilt tripping them may not be the answer because it is going to ruin your relationship. So just those four, you know, capability, motivation, interest, and do they fit in with the family culture?
That's something to remember and to ponder for our attendees. Thank you so much, Dr. Krina. So, Sir Jasper, what is the importance of financial planning and wealth management building in family business succession?
Well, in terms of managing finances for a family business, it's a bit different for most family business compared to a public corporation. Of course, some family businesses are run very much like a public corporation. I have many examples of that. But most of the time, decisions are actually made very quickly. You're able to get agreement very fast. But even if that's the case in a family business, it's still important that we're able to consider all of the right information. You have to have all of your management statistics available, all the information gathered from MIS, and to guide you in terms of making financial decisions. Now, these types of decisions, usually, they'd fall under, you know, where to invest your money, how to use the money, and the financing decision, which is how do you get the money? And each of these should be made independently. So examples of the investment decision is how do you, for example, do you go into a new product line? Do you open a new branch? Do you buy a building or machinery in order to take advantage of that because it's related to your business? And sometimes the decisions are made just because, oh, if I have the money, I'll invest it somewhere. And that's not necessarily the best case because there are many ways of financing each of these decisions. You could use existing cash. You could sell property to raise the cash to make that happen. You can borrow from the bank, or you can even put in more equity from your personal funds. Now, the important thing is that when there is a good opportunity or a good investment, this should not be missed just because there is no available capital or cash. And conversely, if you actually have a lot of money available, it doesn't mean that you need to pursue every venture that comes along. You will really need to prioritize, use your business sense in order to make a good decision on that. And if there really is, it's not necessarily a good time, sometimes the best decision is really just to, you know, hold on to the cash or even return it to the shareholders. So that's a very valid decision, even in corporate, in public corporations. And when that comes in, then the decision or the knowledge of how to properly invest or make that money grow, even not in your business, becomes very important. It's important because not only because you want it to grow, but you want to also have it available in case you need it for future use for the business. You want it also in order to build a legacy for your family. And basically, that skill, that decision has to be taken. It's a very important one. Of course, considerations for how to make this happen is to make sure that when you allocate that money, you're investing it for a long term. Now, if you invest money daily, the chances of gaining or losing more or less, you could say it's 50-50. But if you look at the returns for at least, for example, the Philippine stock market, in the past 20 years, if you look at any 1 year period, 365 days, the chances of losing money there is around only 36%, not 50-50. And then if you invest for 3 years, you look at any 3 year period, the historical chances of losing money goes down to 22%. If it's 5 years, it's 8%. And there's actually no period in the past 20 years where a 10-year investment would lose money. So that's really the importance of staying invested for the long term. The other thing, and I think it's mentioned by other speakers as well, is you shouldn't be afraid to take risks. In fact, usually the best times to make any kind of investment is when there is a crisis or there is a concern. That's the time when there really are a lot of opportunities, and as long as you have the appetite for it and you have a good enough knowledge, you shouldn't be afraid of making that decision.
Sir Jasper, I'm sorry, but I think your sounds got cut off in the Zoom for the participants. Can you just wrap it up real quick lang, just to summarize what you said? Sorry, tech issue.
Okay, so basically the gist of the answer, the advice I'm giving is you have to make really careful decisions in terms of how to use money, but don't be bound by just the availability or non-availability of the money. You have to make that decision independently. And in terms of actually utilizing that extra cash flow, you have to think long-term.
Yes, okay. Think long term. That's good advice. I've learned a lot already from the first part of our discussion, but I'm eager to discuss our next topic even more because I think most of us will find this very relatable. Let's talk about adapting and overcoming crisis in the business. Sir Henry, you've dealt with the financial crisis before, with the Asian financial crisis. How did it affect your business and how were you able to overcome it?
Yeah, we had a financial crisis in 97, 98, and then there was a financial crisis on the 2010 and all of these things. Around almost around 15 years or whatever, when a big crisis happened. But I think the most difficult is this pandemic now, because this pandemic has lasted for more than 2 years now, or even more than 2 years already. During the first financial crisis, a lot of people lost money. A lot of people really, they borrowed on US dollar because US dollar interest is cheaper. And then suddenly the devaluations and also the interest went up as high as 35 to 40%. And then I could live by that kind of interest now, but we were able to weather through. I mean, we are very lucky, at that time, but we were able to sell big trucks of lands, and then we were able to get, posted checks now, which all of them got clear. But then, I know some of the big pipelines right now. I do not want to mention them. So maybe at that time they were even in a bit in a worse position than me. They really cannot sleep now, been having sleepless night. They really want liquidity and cash and all this. And then according to one of them, even with the air conditioning running at a very low temperature, they still get sweats all over his body. But then, all of this, if you're a good entrepreneur, you are able to hurdle all of these problems. They came back and then they become even bigger. This is one of the 10 richest man in the Philippines. I do not want to mention his name, but right now, these are the things, as I said now. If you become an entrepreneur, you will be having sleepless night. As I said in many of my invitations, being a speaker during graduation rights in some of the universities, I said, after graduation, when you go out of these institutions, there are only two paths for you to follow: the path of entrepreneurship or the path of a professional manager. If you follow the path of the professional manager, so if you got yourself being recruited by Unilever, Procter and Gamble, and all this. Now you have a very high salaries. You have fringe benefits. You have sick leave, vacation leave, car plan, housing plan, and all of these things. And you'll be very secure. But if you want to be an entrepreneur, then you're probably in June 24/7 working, and then sleepless night. Bukas may bayad ng mga empleyado niya sa walang pera, paano ka magpapayad ng all of these things that you have to endure. But I chose the part of entrepreneurship because of my father. But when you are successful entrepreneur, I mean, the reward is even much bigger. You can go on a trip 2 months, 3 months abroad, nobody will bother you. You can sleep up to 11 o'clock in the morning and nobody will bother you. You are your own boss. But then, it's all in the mindset also. No? Even as a boy, I know that I do not want to be ordinary. I want to be extraordinary. That should always in your mindset. No? Extraordinary in what sense? No? But I think if I'm extraordinary, I think by this time I have reached now already what I've been dreaming for, no? as a boy. Was being the president of the Federation of Filipino Chinese Chamber of Commerce, which has 170 different organizations under our umbrella. Running it, it's even more difficult, as I said, than running a country, because you have 16 committees and all of the committee members and the chairmans and even the advisory committees, all of them are big businessmen, and some of them are even bigger than you. And how can you control them? If you are a president, at least also cabinet members under you, it's even better to control them. But then again, it's a challenge now. But how we are going to do it is another story. But as I said now, I do not want to be ordinary. And having said that, I'm hoping that my next generation will also to be outstanding also. So we are really looking at how to whether through this pandemic. The pandemic has also wreaked havoc to a lot of stores. Being the president of the federation, I should know. Because we have a lot of our members who are in retail business with a chain of many stores that they only sell around 25% or 30% of what they used to sell before. And they still have to pay salaries and also some rentals. Although some rentals has been slashed down. Last year it's better. Last year we are even encouraging our members now to pay advance now to our workers now who were not able to work because of the lockdowns. And then we also advance a 13-month pace and all of this one. But this year it's different already. This year, has been this pandemic has been lag for so many months. We do not know if there's any light at the end of the tunnel.
Yes.
So anybody will be able to get. And this is not only in the Philippines. This is everywhere. Maybe China is exempted now, but it's everywhere also in other countries. So this is a test now. This is an asset test for entrepreneur. It also depends now on the business that you are in. Luckily, we have the business in agriculture now, in which people continue to eat rice.
It's a necessity. It's a necessity at this time. I mean, people still consume rice. So, but as you mentioned a while ago, Doña Maria is priced premiumly. So did the sales were the sales affected in the time of pandemic?
Oh, Doña Maria rice has been steadily rising even at this point now. But as I said now, maybe if it does reach a certain plateau, then we come out with the second line. That's why with the Willie Farm, which is cheaper than Doña Maria. And then we are trying to come out with the Masagani, which is even cheaper than Willie Farm. But all of them are still higher than the ordinary rice. But the quality is better than all of them. Of course, the Doña Maria is the premium brand that I like to be very proud to say that we're exporting it to different countries right now. And after more than 35 years, and because we lost our one of our Milagrosa brand to the Thais already. If you go to America, the Milagrosa is being claimed by the Thais already. So we don't have any Milagrosa, and then we can export. But we have Doni Maria right now that we are putting back the Philippine rice in the world map. But sad to say also that 3 months after we came out with our rice in Dubai, there were Vietnamese companies using the Doña Maria brand also on the rice. But that means that your rice is good. That's why somebody would like to steal the brand. So this is one thing, one challenge that we will definitely also. But I'm happy. We sell at a very high price and yet we are accepted also by foreign buyers.
That's great to hear. Proudly Filipino made, yes. Michelle, how did the company adapt to the pandemic situation and what actions have you taken?
Siyempre, pandemic right now, so everything's online. From the meetings sa office, we have you can do simultaneous meetings already, different departments one after another. So it's still productive in a way. And on the other hand, we also have our Shop Central PH, which is the online arm of the Sterling Group of companies. On top of that, we are also active in Lazada and Shopee. And we also have the galleon.ph, which is our e-commerce. All the items are from US mainly. And we are happy that we are actually ranked number 6 in the Philippines in the top e-commerce sites. People are still searching and buying items that we are focusing on hard to find items not found in the Philippines. So that's the focus of Galleon. So right now there's no face-to-face still in school, but the notebooks it's not the same as the sales as the previous one, but right now we have some continuous sales, which we are also focusing on our online. Expressions also have their own online arm, and on top of that, like my dad said a while ago, we also focus on the export market. So for the rice, we are now in 13 countries. On top of the Middle East, we are also in Asia. We're also in the US and Singapore. So that's where we are focusing right now.
Dr. Quina, how does financial crisis affect the family business succession?
Obviously, financially, many of the businesses are hit, although not all. Okay, we tend to think that the pandemic is horrible for everyone. In terms of health, I think it is. In terms of uncertainty, I think it is. But honestly, there are certain industries that actually made money. The IT, for instance, I know of several. Na lumaki pa nga. The demand for their products actually increased in the pandemic. How did it affect family business? Before I go into succession, because it's not so much succession, but even just the survival of the company. Let me just say that the companies that thrive the best in this pandemic, I'd rather do it in a positive way. The companies, the family businesses that thrive the best in this pandemic actually did a lot of strategic planning. So normally we do short-term, medium-term, long-term. The ones na medyo natatakot, they're still very much focused on the short term or in the difficult trade-offs that they have to do, resource allocation, do they lay off people, do they mga ganon, okay? A lot of family businesses I know pivoted to IT. Ang lakas na ng investment nila in IT. Many of the founders before that felt that IT was too expensive to go into. Halos lahat, even if they know that IT is a lifeline now in this pandemic. In the medium term, they also focus on restructuring, diversification. But the ones that I admire the most would be the ones who focus, here we go, long-term planning would involve succession. So the financial crisis actually made it clear to many founders or older generation that succession is something that they cannot postpone forever. Okay. With succession, as Jasper was telling us a while ago, comes also wealth preservation. Okay, so those two. I just want to do a shout out to one person who I deeply admire. So I'm an independent advisor to them. This is June Kochanko, the head of Fly Ace Corporation. Wherein the products are actually household names. So in one of the recent meetings, I love the fact that June, who is very street smart, he's also very much updated with national and international business. So he had charts about, GM now is still okay, but it's being overtaken by Tesla. So parang what are the, malakas kasi yung finance niya. So Jasper would really like it. I'm a math major also, so we like looking at those things. And what I like about June was he is encouraging the family to think of succession now and to also innovate for the sake of the next generation. He also quoted Stephen Covey. The best way, I think, Valerie, to survive the pandemic is to do Covey's first rule. Be proactive rather than reactive. So plan for contingencies. Invest also. Kasi kung reactive lang tayo ng reactive, which is sadly what the majority of businesses are doing, many of them will probably shut down in the pandemic, or even they have already shut down. So that's the one, Valerie.
Yes, be proactive, not only in family businesses, but in your personal lives as well, especially during this time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Jasper, I just wanted to reiterate what you said a while ago. Your tips was to invest long-term and also to take risks. But as of now, what do you think are the best practices for businesses in handling financial crisis?
Yeah, thanks, Valerie. So in terms of times of crisis, you really have to stick to what you know. And the good thing about family businesses really is that you know the environment, you know your business, and you can really tell which parts of your strategy are sustainable and still relevant in the current time. You have to be able to distinguish what are temporary setbacks versus what are really structural changes already in the environment, in the industry. Now, I don't want to just focus on the pandemic, but maybe looking back at a longer stretch, we've all heard about the changes that happened, like during the Industrial Revolution. Whoever owns the machinery has the advantage. You have efficiency. Efficiency is king. And then came the Information Revolution, where it doesn't really matter if you have those resources. It's really those who control the tech, control the information, the data. But nowadays, I think that has already passed as well. And the most important part really is what you would call a social revolution. And this is really where companies are really being judged not based on their efficiency or their data, but really on what they do with these things. Are they working for the social good? Are they exercising good governance? Are they treating their customers, their employees fairly? So all of this is packaged in a buzzword that many people refer to as ESG. It stands for environmental, social, and governance criteria. So much like carbon credits became a thing, right? When it used to be that countries and companies can continue to maximize their profit by polluting the environment. And that's put to an end when you introduce the currency of carbon credits, where they get penalized for that. So it won't be very far from now when that will apply in all aspects of ESG. So some of the companies Dr. Aquina mentioned earlier, like Tesla, etc. These are examples of companies that take ESG very seriously. And one of the ways really that you would invest in a sustainable future is to really pick out stocks like that. Some examples of stocks that we have there are many companies with ESG fund. FWD also has an ESG fund. And aside from Tesla, we have companies like Nvidia, Microsoft, Walt Disney, Cisco, Coca-Cola. These are big names in consumer, but they're also giants in terms of financial technology. And they have really good practices in terms of these aspects. And investing in an ESG type fund, or even having your own ESG culture in your company, is a way to really show your advocacy to your clients, to your employees, and it also actually builds into long-term success. And this is because, as we know, many companies like Facebook, they've made a lot of money, but they also lose money when you're basically slapped with some fines for operating in a way that you're not supposed to operate. And that's really what ESG is trying to avoid. You're investing in a company that avoids these pitfalls because they see what's coming. They're proactive. They're not reactive, right? And so it's not just in the news that you can see this. In terms of returns, it does show from the statistics that companies that use these practices tend to perform better. Just this year, if you look at ESG funds, they've actually outperformed the peers. Just within around 8 months, the return that I've seen ranges from around 15 to 18%, just from these funds that focus on ESG companies. I could also mention some other things other than investments. Good practices when you are managing a business is to, of course, don't ignore your property and liability insurance like fire insurance, etc. So those are things that you can really manage the risk by going out and making sure that you're properly covered. And one aspect that also you could consider in many family businesses, especially, there are employees or there are partners, there are people you work with that are a very big asset to the company. And you also need to consider the concept of key man insurance. So I won't talk too much about it. It's just don't have enough time to talk all about it. But in that sense, a key man insurance is one where the company is the one taking out the policy to cover the life of a key employee. The payment is made by the company. And then if something happens, the company gets the benefit. So it less sense offsets the risk of loss and also helps the company to give back to the family of the person involved. So these are various things regarding the how to handle financial crises.
Wow, that's very interesting. It's actually the first time I've heard of it. And our discussion just keeps on getting better. But before we move on to the next topic, let me just quickly remind our attendees that we will have a Q&A session after this discussion. So remember to write down your notes and your questions and leave them at the chat box at the bottom of your Zoom screen. So next, another topic we should talk about: how to secure the future of our businesses. Sir Henry, what are your plans in order to secure your family business?
It's a good question, Valerie. To secure the family business, you really have to have a good successor. That's why we invest also in our third generations. Actually, the company spent for, I said, that's why you, after graduation, if you want to take up your master's, your PhD, or whatever, the company will support you all the way. But then again, you want to join the company right away, immediately, just like what Michelle is doing at the moment. So far, it's not bad, no? But you can also learn now. Because if you are away and then you came back, there will be some sort of an adaptations also. But by and large, we actually, it's not really, the company is not really me and Michelle. I'm the eldest, I have 6 brothers. Then, of course, I have a sister. So this is a big family business also. And as I said, we have also a family constitutions. When I went to Harvard, Jim Davis, and I'm sure Queen must have heard about Jim Davis, who is called me up and he wants to do my family business. Unfortunately, at that time, I found his fee relatively high. At that time, I do not know about Quina yet. No? So actually, we have Andy Ferreira, who is doing our family business. Andy is also from Ateneo, I think, in AIM. And I think Andy is also good. So we have our own family business, family constitutions. That's what we are doing. And so we have to follow the family constitutions. I was telling my, Michelle that whoever is going to you have to pass the baton. It's not because I'm the eldest and you are my eldest, you will automatically inherit the position of the CEO or the chairman. I mean, this is open to all the three Gs now, who is the best qualified, then we will choose among the others. But then as you know that we have so many companies now, we have more than 10 companies at the moment. So all of them will be run by three Gs, and we will see to it that who will be more suitable to run this company. In the meantime, Michelle will be more suitable now to run the Excel Agritech. I've also on SP Properties now in the Sterling. We're also looking at others now. The offsprings are my nephew and nieces, by my other brothers. Some of them are also good. But from what I've observed now, right now, I think as far as gender is concerned, I think the female right now is overwhelming the male. I think the female is performing better than the male as far as I'm concerned at the moment. But because our family constitutions also, I mean, only those with blood lineage now can really run the company. So the in-laws are not supposed to be here in the companies. But then I do not know about Queen right now if they will allow in-laws to also come in. But that's what we are doing at the moment. We have very good in-laws also. No? We have magna cum laude, even summa cum laude, in-laws from Ateneo. Two of my son-in-laws are magna cum laude, and then one of my nephew, they're also magna cum laude, also summa cum laude. But then I'm glad that we have good genes coming in to join our lineage. But then again, passing on to the next generations, as I said, we have so many companies now. Everybody will have to run their own. But then who's going to be the chairman and the CEO? I think still, if we have two Gs that are still here, maybe for most of seniority, we may have to reserve it for the two Gs to lead as the chairman of the whole Sterling Paper Group. But the three Gs now can really separately deal it on their own and the different businesses. So that's what we are doing at the moment.
Okay. Michelle, how do you plan to sustain and continue the legacy of your family business?
As a third generation and as the eldest of 19 cousins, which 11 of us are actively working in the company. I'm glad that we get along very well. We get along better than the second generation gets along with each other. And because we grew up in one house before, so it's like your cousin is also as close as your sibling already. And this is a good foundation of our relationship. So we really know each other since we were born. And we are exposed to our different personalities and characters. We have regular meetings only for third generation. And we have what we do is we plan our own updates for every company that we handle. So we talk about the financial status, like the state of the nation, and what are plans for the future. And we are open to any opinions, any suggestions. And as much as possible, actually, in a way, we are all objective, and everybody has their opinion, or some are more highly opinionated. We are open to all suggestions, and I want that environment for the third generation. Something that we can talk freely, we can talk openly, and on top of that, we have the family constitution, which also guides us, and it states there that the next head of the company is going to be the most competent one, not necessarily the eldest one, not necessarily the male. And we are all agree to this. I'm very agreeable to this, and it's only fair. And I'm happy that we have this relationship. So I'm sustaining this relationship with the third generation. On top of that, we also talk about how we will also deal or work with the existing VPs that we have, the professionals, because some of my cousins are younger, some are supervisors, some are managers, and I'm also partly mentoring them on how to work with the higher positions in the company, and it's partly fun while you are learning also and bonding with each other.
This coincides with what Dr. Quina mentioned a while ago at the start of the discussion, that to always choose based on ability and capability. So, Dr. Quina, we've always heard of that third generation curse. The first generation makes it, the second generation spends it, and the third generation blows it. So why do you think people believe in this? Kindly unmute, Dr. Quina. Yeah.
You're right, Valerie. Yes, it is a third generation curse. In Mandarin, actually, it would be something like fu, pu, po, san, tai. So, wealth does not extend beyond 3 generations. And you're right about the first gen, second gen, third gen. Your question was, why do people believe in it? Sadly, the reason why people believe in it is because it does happen to be true. It is not a myth. Since I'm a math person, I actually did some research on the percentage of family businesses around the world that survive up to the third generation. Depending on the country, it's anywhere from 8 to 15%. So Michelle is third generation, you're actually in the minority. In fact, even surviving to the second generation is around half lang. So why is it that way? Obviously, it would be the lack of suitable heirs. That's really, it's sometimes it would be lack of capital, but overwhelmingly, maybe 99% of the time, it would be the heirs are not qualified to run it, either because they don't have, I won't even call it the smart set. They don't have maybe the background, but even more than that, they don't have the mentality. Sir Henry was talking about mindset and mentality. They don't have the correct mentality to do it. I'll just be very blunt because we're running out of time, and I know this is what everybody asks me. So what is the best way to actually avoid the curse? I will quote Olivia Limpe Au. Why? Because she is 5th generation. One of the very few family businesses in the Philippines. Most family businesses, the Taipans, are just second, just going to third. Yan pa lang eh. So hindi pa natin alam, hopefully they will do well. But si Olivia, she's the head of Distilleria Limtuaco. So she's the 5th generation. And I think I wanted to ask her because she is the living proof na kaya pala mag 5th generation. So I told her, Olive, what's the best thing you can tell family businesses? And she told me I'm allowed to tell you, do not spoil your kids. That's the number one. That's the single biggest one. I will have to say that. I work very much with young people, so I know I have a huge patience with young people. But honestly, when I'm being called by the patriarch or even by the second gen, natatakot sila in the pandemic, or if somebody suddenly passes away, the biggest fear is there is no suitable heir. Iyan talaga. Okay? And I'm not even talking about academics. Many of these kids have MBAs on the best schools abroad, but they just don't have the mentality to fit into the family business. It's I think, I don't have much time to say it, but maybe the sense of entitlement that many of them have. I'm actually very touched that Michelle said that she was starting from the bottom. Lance Gokongwei also famously, did that. When Lance and Robina, when they were starting out, imagine Lance was summa cum laude of Wharton, and yet when he came back, hindi na siya diretso sa vice president. So he actually said when he was starting out, his salary was 2,000 pesos a month. He would go out and sell Jack and Jill snacks to supermarkets. And, he had to go around the city. So his father, John, gave him an old car with a broken air conditioner. I mean, honestly, do you actually have people coming from Wharton doing that today? Magagalit pa yata sila, di ba? But Lance did it. So he actually even said, yes, I am the son of the boss, but I worked harder than anyone else to prove I was just not the son of the boss. He would actually say that. So, we have all of these tales of the businesses, even Michelle and Henry now, and I will have to tell the audience, this is the first time I'm meeting Michelle and Henry, so we did not script what we're saying, okay? So what we're saying is actually true. But this work ethic, I'm a bit worried about it because I see that right now, many of the younger ones who have the best privileges in life, the gratitude they have, they take it for granted. And if they have that kind of mentality, it will not bode well. They will not escape the third generation curse, except, sabihin ko ganito, some people are telling me, paano yan? There's no heir. Paano na? But because there are several who actually don't have heirs, don't have suitable heirs. There is a way out. You have to ensure that your professional team is very good. So if your son, your daughter, your nephew, your niece is not good, then you want to escape that curse. As Michelle was saying, she grew up and her boys were still there. I can tell you story after story after story of professionals who were trusted even by Filipino Chinese, and they are the ones who are mentoring the kids. And in a pinch, the professionals are the ones who are holding the fort. So kaya pa rin. And if you do, I think the financial planning that Jasper was talking about, you can escape the third generation curse. The in-law thing, it's a bit funny when Sir Henry was asking me about the in-law. In-laws can be a force for good, especially in-laws who really love their spouses and who espouse what Ricardo Paul said, that you can actually you can step back. You will not instigate problems. So yes, I've been in family businesses wherein the in-laws are actually even the ones mediating the fights among the siblings. Sadly though, in my experience, okay, I'll quote John Gokongwei again. In their family constitution, there's a rule against in-law, even if the in-law is very capable. Okay, but I think maybe sila, they have a good professional team so that they can do that. Maybe for smaller companies, wherein di ka kiyam lang, you're fewer people, it might not be the case. But in-laws have their pros and have their cons. And one last thing on family constitution. Yes, I do know Auntie Ferreria. Andy is teaching with the Ateneo Grad School. Ricky Mercado and I are actually part of the Ateneo Family Business Center. So we are with the Loyola Heights. The family constitution, we do a lot of it. But I also have to say this. The family constitution is only as good as the commitment of the family to it. I've been called in to come in because they have the family constitution, ang ganda-ganda on paper. We have these values of this preamble, we have this, but then they cannot implement it. And that is the problem. So I tell them it's like the Philippine Constitution. Diba, ang ganda ng Philippine Constitution. But honestly, I'm just gonna say it. Sometimes some people don't follow it. So if you don't follow it, it just looks good on paper. It doesn't help you at all. So family constitution, I agree with Sir Henry, I agree with Michelle. If the family members are committed, it is actually a tool for you to escape the three-generation curse. Thank you.
That was a hard pill to swallow, but I think something that people should remember, especially now. So, Sir Jasper, in securing the future of your business and making sure that it is successfully passed on to the next generations, how can we further secure our finances? And how can investing make our businesses failure-proof?
Thanks, Valerie. Well, earlier I touched on one of the more situational ways where you can manage the risk in the business and protect it in terms of succession. And I was talking about key employees, those who really you cannot run the company without, you'll suffer a huge loss with. But there are other situations where insurance can really help in terms of continuity of the company. So, for example, there would be cases where not all businesses are owned by just one family. There are those who they have mga kotong, and then these people work very well together, but it doesn't mean that their families will work very well together as well. So there's a concept in terms of that where you could actually create an insurance that's meant to do a buyout. So for example, if one of the partners or some of the partners pass away, the family now, instead of having to, I guess, in a way, argue about how to continue their stake in the business, they will just get a share that is funded for already by the insurance. And this works best when the owners are all roughly equal share and roughly equal age, so that the equity is there. And in terms of the investment or the instrument that you can use to make this type of insurance happen, it would be best to use an insurance that has an investment component in it as well, so that when you technically you use the investment as a vehicle to pay for the cost of the insurance as you go along. So that's something that can be discussed with your agent more clearly, more specifically. In general, the concept about passing on family business or family wealth down to the generations, it really boils down to our tax laws, right? So in terms of our laws, it is really different the way you pass money in the bank down versus money that you have put into an insurance contract, because for the estate tax used to be very high. Now it's a little lower. When we did a comparison, if you have 100 million that you're passing down and it's just really invested as cash somewhere, then you will probably only be able to give around 90 to 95 million of that down to your beneficiaries. But if you have an insurance product, you can maintain that amount, and you can even actually add on to it because of the insurance benefit component, around maybe 15 to 20% more, depending on that. So that really is something that should be discussed further. And of course, when you discuss with experts in this field, you don't really just talk about that aspect, but you also talk about the legal aspect, about what's the best way to retain control in terms of your company and your running the business, but without actually having this risk that if something were to happen, things aren't passed down in an orderly fashion.
Again, thank you everyone. I learned so much for sharing your stories, insights, and tips today. Let's give a virtual round of applause to Dr. Henry Lim Bonyong, Ms. Michelle Lim Ganki, as well as our resource speakers, Dr. Quina Lee Chua and Mr. Jasper Hendrik Cheng. That was just our panel discussion. Now we are moving on to the question and answer part of the webinar. To all the Taipans watching, if you haven't yet, drop your questions now in the Zoom chat box and send it to everyone so that we can see your question. You can also mention the name of the panelists who you think can answer your question the best. Let's begin with the first question. This is for Sir Jasper from Richard Cheng. So in relation to keyman insurance, is it ethical or practical for partnerships or corporations to ensure each partner or incorporator to generate funds to pay off the shares and interests of that person who may unfortunately have demised to avoid conflicts with the late partner's family?
Yeah, thanks, Valerie. I think that it pretty much is the question, the way I answered earlier, the question really relates to this question as well. So in this case, you're talking about the ability of the business to continue without the influence of the former partner. And insurance is one vehicle to make that happen. And as I said, the main considerations you should have is that the equity of the sharing of the costs and the benefit across the various partners. So it's not a one-sided relationship.
Okay. Next question is for Ms. Michelle. It's from Shaina Santiago. What would you recommend for those who just started handling their family business?
I would like to recommend that you should know the ins and outs from the bottom up. My favorite show, one of my favorite show is Undercover Boss, if you're familiar, because yung bosses iba sa taas na, they don't know what's happening sa baba. Actually, for me, nakaka-relate ako somewhat, but I'm not undercover. Because that's where you really learn the flow and the dynamics of the whole business. So you learn at the same time, you can get to know how to manage it in the future and how to improve it. So that's really the first step, and the experience that you get there is really priceless.
just what Dr. Quina said a while ago, di ba? Ang gandang case study yung kanila, Dr. Henry Limbonlong and Michelle. So, Doc Henry, what is the secret of success for family businesses? What do you think is the secret?
Secret for success is you have to have somebody like Quina do your family constitutions. Yeah, that's really in order to avoid the third generation curse. No, if you at least have a family constitution, I mean, you will really, you really at least escape the pitfalls now for this one. And I'm not kidding. No, I do not know how many businesses has family constitutions. I think it's still in the infancy stage. I do not know also how many, like Quina here or Andy is also doing family business in the Philippines. And I'm sure that this one will really have to expand rapidly now. But in America, in other countries, I think they are doing that now. Even in other countries like in Thailand, in Vietnam, the rich Taipans also put up their own family business also. And it doesn't differ from country to country. I mean, if you do a family business in the Philippines, you can also adopt the same principle in other countries. So, as I said, no, do a family constitution.
Dr. Quina, our next question is from Morris Tan. What is the best practice regarding to the sharing of dividends or profits in a family corporation?
Okay. Many times the parents feel, because they claim that they love their children equally, they would like the dividends to be equal. Okay, so most of the time, to avoid conflict, the dividends are supposed to be equal. The only bad thing there is I've been called in certain family businesses wherein some of the siblings felt that they are putting in more energy or they're even putting in more capital. So they feel that their share of the dividend has to be bigger. So kung ganyan din, the family has to talk about that. Sometimes it's easier if they just say, they would say something like, I'm the one that's making the business grow. So why am I only getting the same thing as everybody else? So I would actually tell them, look, you're just one of 5 siblings. So I do agree, because they're all siblings. In a sense, they're all equal. You're the same kids of the same parents. Right? But I also tell them, but you're right. Because you're putting in so much more and you're working so much and maybe the others are not working at all and they're just waiting for mga ganon, I would tell them, you can think of it as management. So maybe the dividends are the same, but because you're the one that's really making the business grow, then your salary has to be really, really so much higher than what everybody else is. So at least your take home would be dalawa na. Kahit na yung dividend ninyo pareho, then at least your salary, there is something there to encourage you to do well. But that's a very good question. But most of the time, if you're going to ask parents, they will say they want the dividends equal. There are very few parents now, very few. There still are, but there are very few parents that give more dividends to the male. There used to be a Chinese thing that if the girl gets married, she shouldn't be getting anything or whatever. Meron pa rin ganon, pero kunti na lang. Majority of the clients that I have, they know, they will say, talagang para buedilo ko, to make it everything easier, the dividends are actually equal. Pero yung mga performance bonus, yung mga salaries, ganun, iba na. Good question.
Another question, this is so interesting. Quite a tough question, Dr. Quina. This is from Joy Trinidad. How do you approach permanently removing a family member or employee who is disruptive to the company? Can you do that?
Yes, you can. I'm not a lawyer, but if you have cause to terminate anyone, so the family member is still an employee. Diba? Kahit a family member siya, employee pa rin siya. So if if your code of conduct, they steal from the company, for instance, or some companies I know say they don't want drug addicts in the company. So if you really have proof for that, your company lawyer will tell you, is it possible to remove? Yes, it is possible to remove. Definitely it is possible to remove. The bad thing is, if you remove a family member and that family member happens to be your nephew or your niece, okay, even if, yes, you're right to remove because disruptive siya, baka magagalit na yung tatay nanay niya sa'yo. So there's that thing. How do you do that? I think you should not do it alone. Okay, since you are removing a family member, I honestly think that you should talk it over with the family council. Alam to ni Sir Henry at ni Michelle because this is in their constitution. So yung sa family council, nandyan yan. Talk it over so that you're not the only pailang. You cannot be the only bad guy there. So it has to be a family decision that this person violated the following rules. And if everyone agrees, that would be yun. The other one would be, I don't know about permanently removed. I also don't know if this is a good solution. But in some of my other clients, wherein they really, really want to, they say talagang, hindi talaga siya bagay sa role na to. Okay? What I actually tell them, look at the strength of the young person. Maybe that young person is artistic in some way na hindi talaga siya pwede sa finance kasi hindi na kaya. So maybe you can put the person in marketing. Yung parang, maybe there is a way to also win-win for the company and for the person. The person might be more suitable in another role, and the company will also be better off, and you would also feel relieved. You don't have to really fire the person. You can just put the person into another role which the person is suited to. That might be okay. Problema lang kung yung attitude ng young person. Yan na yung problema. Kung may entitlement, medyo, SOB, di ba? Son of the boss in that way, di ba? In a bad way, di ba? So if that's the case, then don't do it alone. Make sure that the family is behind you so that they don't get mad at you for doing that. So good luck if that's the case. That's very difficult to do. Okay? Good luck.
Okay, Sir Jasper, could you share with us tips for the growth and success of businesses?
I think as shared earlier, the key really is to make good investment decisions. But if there really isn't a good investment opportunity available, you have to bide your time. Don't get impatient. Stick to what you know. And sometimes it's really just make sure the money isn't sleeping. Make sure to put it somewhere that it can be of good use so that you have it when you need it.
And Michelle, can you give an advice to families to become successful in their businesses?
Yeah, so besides the given that you're exposed early for your own attitude, your own self-growth, it's also best to learn or to be exposed to different departments in the company, especially when you are young and you just graduated. Sometimes not necessarily what is your course that is the department that you'll go into. So for me, I started actually in SAP, like MIS. Then I went to merchandising, I went to product development, production. And I found out that I really enjoy the marketing part of the business, from the product development to sales. And if you know the ins and outs of every department, it's better for you, and you have the broad knowledge to really know the vision of the company, and to really plan better for the future.
Sir Henry, we have a question from Reggie Yu. I'm sure you know Sir Reggie. His question is, after being the key person credited for growing the Sterling Group to where it is now, can you say that you can comfortably retire and pass the leadership to Michelle at this very moment? Sir Reggie asked it. Sir Henry.
Valerie, there's a compulsory retirement in our company now. Once you reach 65 years old now, you are supposed to be retired already. But then, I'm 70 right now. And I still remember now when Jan Kokong was telling us that, I'm 65 to 85 years old. I think he makes more money during that 20 years now than the entire stress of his life. Because at that time, you've already, accumulated so much experience and goodwill and all of these things now. So it's not a good time for you to retire this moment now, with that goodwills and all of this experience that you have. So, but I'm giving me another 5 years now. Maybe if John Gokong retires at the age of 85, so maybe I'll retire at the age of 75. So another 5 years will be okay for me.
All right. So, Dr. Quina, this question is also from Sir Reggie Yu. One of the options you recommended is to get professional management team, especially when there are no suitable heirs to take over the business, right? However, he says most good professional people cost an arm and a leg, which the business sometimes cannot sustain. How can owners look for competent and, more importantly, trusted professionals who are willing to settle for small salaries?
I, hello, Reggie. That's a very difficult question, actually. And I also know Reggie. He's a very good. Reggie is excellent. Runs his business very well. Um, the thing is, you're right. Most good professionals will want, well, because they have the choice and the opportunity, they will want to go where they are properly compensated. The one thing I can say, perhaps with professionals who are a bit young, maybe the millennial generation. So the millennials would be sometime in their 30s. Many of them are also, the older ones are almost reaching 40. When I talk with some of them, they say that salary is just one part of the package. So what I know some companies do is the salary is still there, but if they cannot give, say, X amount, they can give 2/3 of the X amount, but the 1/3 will be other things that millennials like, which will be flexibility of job would be one. There's so meaningfulness of the job. When Jasper was talking kanina about the investment, yung mga environmental social goal, many of the millennials really, really believe in that. I've written articles about that on the investment, and Jasper is right. Many of the top investments now, basically, they're also very socially responsible. They're not really the traditional ones now. So many of the millennials feel that way. So maybe for Reggie, I would think, look for, you still have to pay them well. I mean, that there's no getting around it. I would say possibly 2/3 or maybe of what they would want. But for the other 1/3, give them the autonomy. Millennials want the autonomy. Give them the flexibility to work from home. Many of them actually want to work from home. I know of many people who don't want to work for some businesses wherein they're forced to go in all the time, even after the pandemic. Sabi nila, kaya naman sa bahay. Bakit kailangan araw-araw sa office? They would rather have a hybrid setup. So millennials, that's very important for them. Work-life balance is very, very important for them. Meaning in business, if you can say that, maybe I cannot give you as big a package as this business, but look at our CSR. Sasabihin niyo yan. Look at what we're doing. That one can attract. It has attracted a couple of my best students in Ateneo. I actually did recommend, headhunter asked me and called me, and sabi ko yes. So they are being paid very well. Certainly paid better than me in academia. There's not much in academics, but they say that they could have gotten something higher, but they believe in the company. So if they believe in the company, kaya na yan. That's also a good incentive. Very difficult question, Reggie, but a good one.
Yes. So speaking of millennials, Sir Jasper, how can we introduce the idea of investment to millennials?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think millennials, they have this term called YOLO, right? You only live once, so you should really make the most of it. But when you only live once, if you make any mistakes, it's really hard to recover from it unless you've properly provided or created a safety net for yourself. So in this sense, it's important to start saving early. I think many millennials actually understand that concept. But in terms of investing, it's about making the money work for you more powerfully. One advantage of being young is really you have a lot of years ahead of you, and that's where you can let not just compound interest help you out, but you can also afford to take a lot more risks. Now, I mentioned earlier about long-term investing, and in terms of long-term investing, how I like to explain it is that if you put in money on a day-to-day basis and look at how much you earn or lose when you take it out, it could be like 50-50 or 50% chance of losing money. But if you look at the statistics that we have, even just looking at the Philippine Stock Exchange for the past 20 years, if you put in your money for a 1-year period, you would actually only have a 36% chance of losing money and a 64% chance of gaining money based on that back testing. If you had put it in for a straight 3 years, the risk of losing goes down to 22%. If you stay for 5 years, the risk of losing money goes down to 8%. And there's actually no period in the past 20 years where if you've kept the money for longer, 10 years and up, that you would lose money. It would always be higher. So it's really important that you start investing early, that you invest for the long term, and also don't be afraid to put in money even when the market is going down, because sometimes that's the best time to put in money. And no one can really time the market perfectly, so there's nothing wrong with just creating a discipline. You don't have to be the smartest one to figure out when to put in money. Just put in money at the time that you can, the amount that you can spare, and it will serve you in the future.
All right. Thank you to everyone who sent their questions. And of course, I would like to hear from our guests and resource speakers any last information or message that you would like to share with our viewers this evening. Starting off with Sir Henry, what is your message to those who are also passing on their businesses to the next generation?
Valerie, as president of the federation, we have many businessmen inside the federation that is more qualified than me to talk about family business. But then again, I'm happy, that I'm the first one to be here, to be featured as your guest. And I'm hoping that the audience, our listeners, will be benefited by what we have been talking about, our experiences in the past. I may not be the best qualified person to talk about family business and all these things, but I'm talking from my own experience, from my heart. And I hope that you will also pick up something from me. But then I think we should also look the future, that there will be a better guest speaker for family business in the future. And I'm glad that we have Queena here joining us. And of course, we have Jasper here also talking about all of these things about investment and other things. And I'm happy that Michelle has been doing her share. So the 3Gs. And what we are here is that as far as we are concerned, to share you some what we have been doing in our family business, because we have so many companies. And each of you will head a certain company. So if the company will make money, for example, of 100 pesos, then 10 pesos will be given as a share of the profit. From the 10 pesos, the one who lead the company, out of the 10 pesos, you get 50%, you will get 5 pesos. And the other 5 pesos will be divided among the other family members. So that's what we have been doing. So that's why everybody, if you hit a certain line of business, you make sure that you will be able to make money, because you will get 50% of the share. And I think that's fair enough. If you are doing an extra step or going the extra mile in order to make the company profitable, I think you should deserve also additional remunerations. But then I hope, I do not know who are the audience right now, but I'm sure there are many of you that will be better than us. But just the same, we are just sharing our own experience and on what we are doing. One thing I can say is that I've heard of Queena for a long time, and if you want the family constitutions, go look up for Queena. Okay, thank you.
Dr. Henry, every time I meet you in our webinars, I learn so much from you. So it's always a pleasure seeing you online. Thank you so much, Doc Henry. And Michelle, any message you'd like to share to our viewers, advice to those who are also passing on to their businesses to the next generation?
So, as what my dad said, what I'm gonna say is based also from our own experience. I'm happy that my parents did not spoil us. We grew up without an allowance, zero, because I'm a lunch boarder, St. Jude. so I don't have to don't have to pay. Then my yaya just gives me a sandwich for merienda until it got to the point that I grew tired of that same sandwich every day. That lady's choice. Same sandwich every day. I don't want to eat it anymore. Um, my favorite snack actually is our junk food, but I don't have even a peso to buy that. I remember when I was in third year high school already. I have a classmate. Um, she told me to join her for merienda, but I told her I'll join her, but I'll not buy anything. Um, I'll just watch her eat her merienda. And then she said, libre kita. Sabi ko, sige, one small junk food. And then I was so happy eating that junk food. And when I went home, I told my dad, I'm so happy today I got to eat a merienda junk food. And the one who actually treated me is the owner of Corona Notebook, my classmate. Then my dad said, okay, from now on, I'm gonna give you an allowance. I I don't know if my dad still remembers that, but of course, it's my first allowance, third year high school. So I remember that it's 50 pesos a week, it's 10 pesos a day. It's enough for a juice and a pack of peanuts, and I'm already happy. But same thing, I'm also training my kids. I'm also, because I know this sense of entitlement right now, you cannot really control it. They're exposed to this social media, to their friends, and it's really so hard. So the parents now actually have a harder time teaching this discipline to their kids and sense of entitlement. So that's one of the key, because that's actually a major thing already. And if they are humble and they're not spoiled, it's easier to discipline them and to make them appreciate the value of hard work and also the reward of hard work. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Dr. Quina, any final tips or advice for family business owners and succession planning?
Yeah, I was actually very touched by Michelle's sharing of the no allowance until she was in high school. Actually, Sir Henry, you raised them very well. I also did not give my child an allowance, and he was in Xavier pa, which was quite, Xavier is a great school, but sometimes some of the other kids, they have lots of allowance. So what my kid used to do is, he told me he would tutor his friends, and then they would treat him to to junk food, Michelle, during the recess. So yan yung ginagawa niya. So we don't have a family business, but early on, because he's my only child, lalo na I cannot spoil him. That is the mentality. It is so easy to spoil them, but because we love them, we cannot. You're right also, Michelle, about social media. Social media can be a lifeline, but social media also is causing a lot of depression even among my students when they compare each other, and they should not. And they keep on thinking everybody else has a better life than they have. And sabi ko sa kanila, hindi naman yan totoo, di ba? So, what would my advice be for everybody? It's the pandemic still. There's light at the end of the tunnel, but it's the pandemic still. So let us reconnect and rediscover, especially the bonds of family. In a family business, there is the business there, but the family business will only thrive if the family is strong. And rather, there are some family businesses wherein I'm sad to hear, they would actually tell me that the younger generation, something like, naloloka na ako kasi 24/7 I'm with my parents and we're not even talking already. And may ganon, sad. Filipino-Chinese, yes. But I also know I have some clients wherein there's this lolo who told me, he's a patriarch, very famous, so I cannot say his name. Okay, he told me that sometimes he nags so nobody listens to him. But in the pandemic, he said in one dinner, he started talking about his adventures in World War II when the Japanese came. And he said, to his surprise, his apo, who normally is always just gaming, ganyan, parang na-interesado daw. Lolo, is that true? So the lolo told me, wow, the apo never talked to him before the pandemic, and he also did not have time to talk to the apo because he was still running the business. So he actually said that, this pandemic was actually, in a sense, useful for them. He reconnected, this famous patriarch, Filipino Chinese, reconnected with the apo who's 9 years old. Okay? And parang sabi niya, boy, ginabo, bithyangwa, pero boy, apo, to bithyangwa. You know, the middle-aged father, ayon na. Pero the apo was ano. So he was using the pandemic as a time to reconnect and rediscover. And he told me he's announcing to everybody that his successor will be the apo. Because the apo is listening to him all the time. You know, that's in a joking way. Diba? So let us, family is so important. Family business, the word family comes before family business. So let us reconnect. Filipino Chinese are we're very, very proud of our strong family bonds. So let us use this pandemic as a way to reconnect, rediscover, and strengthen each other.
Family before business. I love that, Dr. Quina. Sir Jasper, any final tips?
Yeah. So I think many of our audience here, really are in a unique position. You're already running your business or you're in line in terms of running the business, and that's really a great privilege, but also a great responsibility. So I'd like to challenge everyone. Try to make your business live your values. Have really show your purpose in terms of how you run your business. Money is a tool. Money is not really the goal. And in order to really use money properly as a tool, you really should also listen to the advice of people around you, because you really want to be focusing on making your business work, reaching your purpose, reaching out to many people, whether it's your customers, your clients, your employees. That should be your main focus. And with the advice of people around you, it would be the best time to make your money grow.
Again, thank you so much to our panelists and to our Taipans. We hope this webinar helped you understand the importance of succession planning in family businesses, especially in these changing times. Once again, I would like to thank our guest speakers, Dr. Henry Lim Bonleong, Ms. Michelle Lim Ganki, and our resource speakers, Dr. Quina Lee Chua and Mr. Jasper Hendrik Cheng. Thank you so much, Tosia. Let's give them a big round of applause, a virtual round of applause. Thank you. We hope you've learned a lot from our webinar today, everyone. And if you did, you can share your takeaways on social media so more of our viewers can use them as well. Also, may I just remind our attendees that you can stay after the webinar to socialize and chat with one another. Again, we would like to thank our partners, FWD Life Insurance and Batch 97 of the Alumni Association of Xavier School for making this event possible. Once again, my name is Valerie Tan of Chinoy TV, and I hope to see you again in the succeeding events. Have a great evening. Bye.